Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today and talking
Yeah.
about World Wildlife Conservation Day.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. It's good to see you again, Dr. Cassie. And yeah, it's a day that's near and dear to my heart. It's a new one, but it's a really important one.
Yeah, so I'd love for you to tell us more about that because it is a little bit of a new one, yet just immensely important. This is something that we've started to recognize just in like the last few years, right?
Yeah, and I think, it's important because of wildlife conservation is, it's this big term. It's like, what does it mean? But it's an important time for us to stop and think about how it has meaning in our own lives, how we can make a difference. That's always, kind of what we're trying to do with these days is bring them back home, bring them back to personal actions, to grassroots movements and things. So, with World Wildlife Conservation, like we all love wildlife, we all watch all the videos, see all the cool whether it's you're on social media, on Instagram, or you're watching on TV, or you're out in the wilds, it's like we all have this love for the species and the biodiversity, but it's important to think about how that is going away quickly in our world and how we can change that.
Yes, it's almost one of those where I don't know, sometimes it's like easier to it's less painful to like play ostrich and just be like,
Yeah.
I just it's so hard to think about because of course it hits so close to all of our hearts. Like you said, we all love wildlife.
Mhm.
So I'd love your thoughts. I guess, this is going out on social media for like the general public, for everybody to say, what kind of things can we keep in mind, small steps in our own lives to help with wildlife conservation. And then certainly we're lucky in the veterinary professional and just animal healthcare and care in general to have even more opportunity to help with wildlife conservation. So what kind of impact have you seen with just small steps that we can take in our lives to help wildlife?
I think it's actually, you would talk about, being a ostrich and putting your head in the sand. I mean, that is our first reaction sometimes when we hear these scary stats. Like, some of the stats from World Wildlife Conservation Day is like, yeah, there's like 41,000 or more red listed species by the IUCN, that are, threatened or endangered. I mean, that's 41,000 species. Of that, I think 16 or 17,000 of those are critically endangered. So, your first reaction is like, oh my, what can I do? And you talk about there's these giant polluters and there's other ones, and it feels like you can't do anything at your level. And that just isn't true. Like we've seen a lot of great movements over the last, 5 to 10 years that really start with a few people, on social media or sharing their stories. I feel like these stories, plastic bags wrapped around animals, different, all the stories showing the plastic that's not going away, all of that really can relate to wildlife conservation, obviously, but it can be started just at our own level with stories we share.
I think you make such a good point there that it can feel so overwhelming
Yeah, yeah.
to really try to make an impact. But the more I've really focused on, conservation and just eco-friendly type of things, like exactly what you're saying, it sounds like it really comes down to a lot of reduction, and of course, specifically when it comes to plastic. And so certainly that would be amazing if that would catch on. I know, Amazon, of course, that's a whole nother thing when it comes to eco-friendly and everything like that. But I have a little like silverware thing that I keep in my car because I work out of my car. And so when I'm
Yeah.
on the road, to not use the plastic silverware and things like that, that little things that we can all do to just make it a normal thing that we're bringing along these reusable things and we're not creating as much waste.
I work with some folks in Costa Rica, Toucan Rescue Ranch. They do work all over the country. And one program we do when I go down there is free spay neuter clinics to the rural communities. And that you can't protect sloths and all these other animals when there's feral dogs and cats that will attack them as they're doing their just normal movements through communities. So you have to get at the source. You can't just tell people you can't have your dogs. They're going to have their dogs. It's more about education programs in the school, enabling them to have better help for their pets, and take better care of their pets, and educating. And that actually has direct spin-offs to conservation. So I find myself doing a lot of different things these days that I didn't originally think had to do with conservation or really had to do with veterinary medicine. But it's awesome. It's all these different ways that you can help species, help the planet.
Are there ways that we can, I mean, I know we talked about the spay and neuter clinics, and I think many of us on the small animal side would feel comfortable in that arena.
Mhm.
From the wildlife side, is it kind of, showing up and being immersed and learning as we go, or are there resources we can reach out to get a little bit more comfortable if we wanted to get involved in wildlife conservation?
Yeah, I for more just like informal training as you're going, shadowing or volunteering with vets that are already doing it, I think is a great option. Um, every now and then, like if I'm traveling and I happen to be down south, like the Pacific Marine Mammal Center, for example, there's another great one, another great group. They have a fantastic vet staff, and they're like, sure, come and help. And you just basically learn while you're there for a few days, And so I can't say that all these places will take volunteers, but most of the ones I've mentioned, I got started. I know their name because I volunteered with them, and you will learn a ton. All of you vets out there, you and students, you can make a huge difference in even these places that maybe look not that great. So don't overlook them. You can be the one that improves them and takes them to these new levels and gets the animals back out there. And I think it comes down to the power of one kind of a concept is I can only do so much. And, that's, occurs to all of us. As a vet, you can only do so much, or as a conservationist. But how can you help empower a fleet of vets or, a group of people who, or empower or inspire? And so that's kind of where I'm going these days.
That's awesome. And it just, I mean, I can imagine that just like gets you out of bed in the morning where you're like, I'm going to
Oh,
go
yeah.
help some people. I'm going to go help some animals. We're going to make the world a better place today. Thank you so much for all of the information. I definitely look forward to the links and being able to share those around. Let's
Yeah.
absolutely stay in touch about, making this a bigger effort, like a combined effort, because
Right.
we're here and happy to use our resources to help too.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. I appreciate it.